Republican Senator Joni Ernst just revealed something truly disturbing about the Republican Party when she reminded her constituents that we are all going to die. So let me explain. Now, you've already heard. She's at a town hall. She's talking about the cuts that they're going to make to Medicaid, and someone yells out, "People are going to die." And she goes, "Well, we're all going to die." And it gets worse from there, but let's just look at that for a second, because that's not a surprise to any of us, right? I'm a professional philosopher. I think about death all the time, but let's be honest, you probably are keenly aware of it too, right? Like, none of us are surprised by this. We've lost people we love. We see ourselves aging. We know death is coming for us all. So what does she actually mean when she says this? What she actually means is it's okay if the poor die sooner. We don't think doctors are actually preventing death. We think that they're slowing death, that they're preventing early death. If an infant dies, it's especially tragic because it's unnecessarily early, right? When people die sooner than they need to, that's the tragedy, right? So the point that she's saying here is, oh yeah, no, people are going to die, but it's really just going to be the earlier deaths of the people we don't really care about anyways, the poor, the disabled, the people who are struggling in our society. That is what is really, really disturbing about this. And then she had the gall to the next day put out an apology in a cemetery. She's like, "Oh, I didn't realize some people didn't know that they were going to die. Wait until they hear about Santa Claus. But if you don't want to die, come to my religion, come and believe in Jesus Christ." And let me explain why that's so disturbing. So this reveals who Republicans really are. And by that, I mean the politicians and the Republican Party. I don't mean you personally as a Republican. What I mean is the Republican Party has always been the party of big business. And I know a lot of you don't believe that, right? Especially because Donald Trump is such a populist. But actually look at the policies over the course of the last century. Where do they put their money? What do they vote for? Not only do they vote against things like welfare and social services and things that support the poor, which you may not agree with, but they also regularly vote for things that benefit large businesses, like getting rid of unions, tax cuts for large businesses, enabling businesses to do things like bury toxic waste wherever they want. Over and over and over again, they benefit those businesses. And you might be like, no, we're the party of Lincoln. The Republicans are the party of Lincoln. Yeah, that's true. Republicans were against slavery, but not for the moral reason that we all wish was the case, any more so than the Democrats were, right? What it really comes down to is Republicans at the time were the party of industrialization, right? Industrialization was really hitting the United States, and it was causing a huge tension between the North and the South because the South wasn't industrializing. So the South was competition in terms of business for the industrialization of the North. So the North, these wealthy tycoons and these industrialists knew that they could make a ton of money if slavery ended in the South because this business competition would end. And so that's why they were against slavery. And that has continued all the way to this day, where they will tell you, oh, we're against unions because unions are going to cost you money. But who really saves the most money from unions ending? It's always going to be large companies like Walmart. That, you might pay a little bit less than a due, but they're going to save billions in the long run from you not getting to voice your concerns as a group with your other employees. So my point being that Ernst in doing this has given away the game, not just in like the complete and casual and cavalier disregard for the poor, but she's also revealed how Republicans have gotten where they are in terms of getting us all to go, oh, wow, I guess they're really the party of the people, while at the same time putting out bills that are going to benefit the wealthy far more than they would ever benefit the middle class or ever benefit the poor. So companies and the wealthy will make so much money off of this business. And it's not like ask yourself, when have companies ever suddenly made a lot of money and said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn around and I'm going to just increase all of these employee salaries, make sure that you might personally work for a good small company, but these large companies never do that. So what's the game here? Republicans figured out that if they continued to be so invested in business, that average people were not going to vote for them, and it was doing them harm at the ballot box. So they attached themselves to abortion. There was something that a lot of people really cared about and had concerns about. Now, not only was it a civil rights issue and a women's rights issue, but it was also for a lot of people an issue of life and an issue of their Christianity and their Christian belief sets. Now, if you think about it, and you know this is true, Republicanism has almost always uniformly in policy been anti-Christian. I mean, to say something like, oh, well, everyone's going to die is pretty anti-Christian. Like, why would Jesus go around healing all of those people if, in fact, it doesn't matter if they're going to die anyways? If anything, he'd be euthanizing them and sending them off sooner. Like, why bring Lazarus back from the dead if death isn't a little sad and tragic, right? So clearly everything that she's doing here is very, 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 very counter to the Christian notion. But if you look at the policies in general, they with regularity advocate for policies that hurt the poor. We're talking about a religious belief that says we should help the poor, help the homeless, feed the hungry, visit the prisoners. Where do you see any of that in the Republican policy playbook? You never do. So what they did was they attached it to abortion. And in that, they were able to cause Christian Republicans to have tremendous cognitive dissonance. I myself have experienced it heavily, where there's this one part of you that's like, I really want to concern myself with life and the care of life, and I'm worried about what that means, right? Like, you're someone who's raised as Christian, and you're supposed to value all human life. Unfortunately, like, not any other life, not animal life or anybody else, but that's a different argument. But on the other hand, you're like, well, but I'm also voting for something that like doesn't help the poor. Aren't I supposed to help the poor? I'm kind of, and then what you have to start doing is twisting yourself in knots. And you start having your political leaders say, oh, no, don't worry. There isn't a dissonance here. If we give that money, if we give that welfare to them, you're actually hurting them. That's not what Jesus wants. Jesus wants you to give them don't even give them a fishing rod. Jesus wants you to give them the belief in themselves. If you give them money, you're disrespecting them. You're a bad Christian if you help them, which does not track with anything, not a single thing that you see in the New Testament or in Christ's actions. So there you are, right? A Christian Republican having to turn yourself in knots to match these different belief sets where you're going, okay, well, I want to believe in life, but at the same time, I'm going to vote against the policies that if I require this woman give birth, also make sure that the child is well fed, that she has the resources that she needs to support the child, right? That we're going to take away all of that. We have like the worst childcare in the world, for crying out loud, while at the same time demanding that women should have to have the children. How does that fit that? If the children are the most precious thing and Republicans are constantly reminding us that they care about kids, why are we letting so many of them go hungry in the United States? And the reason why is because once you believe in a contradiction, anything can come from it. Once you believe that something is true and false at the same time, you can believe in any insane thing that you want. It's like, okay, well, I believe that the Miami Dolphins are the best football team and also the worst football team. Well, now you can say any nonsense you want after that. Well, but they're also like really, it doesn't matter. Once you have those contradictions in your head, reason need not apply. So once these politicians got Republican Christians to go, oh yeah, well, I guess like I'm a Christian and I really believe in life, but at the same time, if I help the poor or help the needy, I'm actually somehow doing them harm. They could get them and twist them into any belief set that they wanted. So much so now that a Republican senator can go in front of her constituents, say that people are going to die, the poor and disabled are going to die. And her response isn't to kind of clarify, oh no, what I actually mean is that people who aren't supposed to be on the program are cheating. No, she can just say, we're all going to die, come to Jesus Christ anyways. And why? At that point, why? And that's my final question to you. If, in fact, the party of Republicanism is the party of Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ is being represented through them, why would we follow Christ anyways? It sounds like a callous, uncaring, malicious person who doesn't care about the poor. Isn't the whole point, isn't the whole motivation there in the first place is that it's a religion of love, kindness, compassion, learning to care about others, growing as a person yourself. So for her to come out and say, yeah, okay, well, yeah, we're all going to die. Why bother to help them now anyways? It's all about the future in heaven. The whole point is to be the kind of person who actually is worthy of heaven in the first place, right? To be the kind of person who represents well the love and kindness and compassion. And some of you are going to argue that. You're going to say, well, you don't have to earn your way. And that's fine. I'm just saying, if you are someone who doesn't care, how are you the example? How are you the person that we're supposed to be? And that's how Republicans have done it. That is how they have turned us into the least caring society in the world, with the most stuff and the most power and the most wealth and the ones least willing to share it with others. And the comedy of that is you remember that whole thing. It's easier for a camel to enter the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the gates of heaven. Well, we are the rich man. We are the wealthiest society in the world, and we cannot see the direct contradiction and instead tell ourselves, oh no, I'm beloved, I'm good, I'm doing God's will, while at the same time saying, let the poor die. Okay, if you disagree, if I missed something, please, by all means, put it in the comments. I love to have polite conversations with you all. If you found this interesting, please like, please subscribe. It's super helpful to me. If you have any further interest in these kinds of deep dives, you'll find them on the playlist here on this end screen. And with that, thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and I hope you have a wonderful day.